Welcome to PowerPointSkills.com. We're going to take a look at putting together sales presentations, designing PowerPoint presentations that generate sales. And what a lot of people don't realize is that master presenters actually have a very well-defined structure in place for their presentations. They take people on an emotional journey, and we're going to take a look at some of the different steps in place and give you an idea of a timeline that lasts around 60 minutes. So first of all, like any good story or movie, there are three major parts: a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the beginning really sets the tone, just like in our movie when we're establishing who the character actors are, what some of their motivations might be. We're going to do the same thing in our presentation. The middle of the presentation is where we really get into the demonstrating proof, changing beliefs. It's really the meat of the presentation. And the ending is where we close the business, hopefully, with this presentation, and we're trying to get people excited. We're going to move them to action. This is the closing time, so it's the most important part, I guess, of the presentation when it's all said and done. So our three parts, as you can see, I've broken into a number of individual components, and we're going to work through those over the next few minutes. Also, you can see I've mapped out the interest level, and typically this is the interest level of the audience who are listening to your presentation. No matter how good you are, you can't actually keep an audience fully excited all the time. They're going to vary from mildly interested to very interested. And I've tried to map here for you sort of an emotional chart so you can see the journey that you're going to be taking them on. Now, the great thing is that if you're aware of this, you can cater to it. If you're aware of where the audience is going to be skeptical, you don't need to worry about it. If if they're all being very quiet and sitting back with arms folded, that's expected. And I'll show you how that works in just a moment. I've also put some approximate timing for these items here, which map out to 57 minutes, and of course that's a rough guideline for you. So in the beginning of our presentation, we're going to work through the introductions, and this is where you're trying to set a general introduction of introducing yourself and the people in the room, an opening to the presentation, and giving a little background and your understanding of the issues. And what you're trying to do here is establish some credibility. People like doing business with people who are like themselves, and if you can establish that you're a person that they like, there's a strong chance that they will be interested in doing business with you if you maintain a credible presentation right to the very end. The middle section of our presentation is where we like to address three maybe commonly held beliefs that are stopping people from doing business with us. And that might be beliefs about our competitors, beliefs about our products, beliefs about the marketplace and whether they should or shouldn't be buying at the moment. And I'm going to show you a way to overcome objections and to actually change beliefs that people might have. So the purpose of this is to really highlight three issues that you know that you can solve, hopefully better than anyone else in the business, and motivate people to want to purchase your products and services. The ending is where we motivate people to action, and we put in place a brief action plan, a conclusion, answer some questions and overcome objections that will be raised, and move towards the close. So what we're trying to do is to actually accelerate the decision-making process and to put it all on the table so that people are informed enough to be able to make a decision by the time we leave the room. So let's take a look at the structure of the presentation from an emotional perspective. At the very beginning of a presentation, you may find some people who are quite keen to see you, but you will also find that there are a number of people in the room who seem agitated or distant. Quite often we might have a captive audience, but in some cases we have a captured audience, people who are really hostile and would much rather be doing something else, but their bosses told them that they have to come to your presentation, so there they are. As long as you're aware of that they may appear a little agitated right at the beginning, but don't worry about that. During the time that you have with them, hopefully you'll loosen them up a little bit, get them interested in what you have to say, and hopefully engage them in the presentation. At the shortly after your introduction and giving them a sense that you actually do know what you're talking about and that you might actually have something to say to them of some value, you might find that they're actually quite enthusiastic. Now, they will drop down again as you go into the background of the industry and some of the issues that they might be facing, simply because they have probably quite a bit of pain attached to the things that you're discussing. And they will also be somewhat skeptical about your ability to solve these issues. Why should you be able to solve them, or why should you have an answer when no one else does? So you will find that there is a mild sort of level of interest at that point, but people are really trying to assess whether in fact you are credible. In the middle section of the presentation, we start to address very specific beliefs and what we can do about them, and start showing people some proof that we do have some answers and that we have some evidence to back up the claims that we're making. And so our audience will go through a period of rising belief. They will pitch down to disbelief when you start on the next point, and over the presentation you'll have a chance to again increase their belief in you and your solution. Now, towards the end, we go to a Q&A session and some actions and closing steps. During the Q&A, you find that most people are actually quite turned off. Many of them have already picked up what they need to know during the presentation, and it's one or two people who seem to ask a lot of questions. Quite often those questions are personally motivated and not really of any interest to anyone else in the room, and that's why they get a little bit bored. But at the end of the Q&A session, you start to talk about actions, what people can do, the timeline, how quickly things can happen, how quickly their lives can improve, and the audience again will become enthusiastic, and hopefully you'll get them up towards that 100% level towards the end of your presentation and motivate them to purchase. So that's the journey that we are going to take people on, and quite often in like any good movie, you'll see a similar kind of thing. As the characters are rolled out, people start to understand the story, there are some distractions, some actions happening in the middle of the movie where the meat of the story happens, and then towards the end there are a few moments of maybe disappointment or sadness before the fantastic sort of twist of events at the end, and everything works out okay in the end. At least that's what happens in most good movies. So we're going to take our customers through that very same structure in any sales presentation that we do. First of all, your introduction. It's very important that you make friends with the people in the room and go out of your way to go around the room and meet people as they come in. This is going to establish you as a friendly, outgoing person. Give them your business card. Try to get into some chit-chat if you have time to do that before the presentation. And of course, you'll obviously be there early to set up for your presentation. And have the chance to do that, particularly with the people who come to the room early. They tend to be some of your enthusiasts. What you want to do is try to, as you introduce yourself and go around the room asking people to introduce themselves, you want to make sure that you check the agenda and make sure that you have the right allocated time for the meeting. But you want to ask every single person in the room as you go around, if there was one thing that they wanted to make sure that we covered during the presentation, what would it be? What's really important to you as a participant in this meeting? I want to make sure that I address that during this presentation. And make sure that you're taking notes as you ask that question of everyone in the room. Make sure that you do take notes, or even better, go to a whiteboard and put those points up there, because later on it's a great visual tool to use to go back and check off those things with the people in the room to make sure that you answered their questions. Everyone else can see that you addressed their questions, so it's a great closing tool to be able to use.